everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review, and today we're going to be doing Batman and Robin, issue number 5. Take a look at this comic cover right here. Now, last we left off on Batman and Robin, Damian decides to go off and work with nobody due to the fact that tensions have been growing between him and his father. The two of them just don't seem to trust each other for whatever reason. Batman thinks Damian is too young to know the information that he has, and Damian just doesn't trust his father because he's not living up to the image that he had in his mind of who Bruce Wayne and Batman really is. So, Damian decides to go off and work with Nobody, the main villain of this series thus far. And let's do a little recap of who Nobody is. Nobody is the son of Henry Ducart, who is the man who trained Batman in his manhunting skills. Now, originally, before Flashpoint, Henry Ducart was introduced in Batman Blind Justice, which you can pick up in trade. And basically, Bruce learned how to become a manhunter and how to become a detective from Henry. Henry was the best there was. However, Bruce found out that, well, Henry Ducart also killed people, and that's not what Bruce does. That's not what Batman does. So he kind of buggers off and he leaves Henry Ducart. Now, in this comic, Batman and Robin, it is shown that Henry had a child, and that child eventually grows up to become Nobody. Nobody has a particular interest in ruining Bruce's life, and he decides to do that using Bruce's son, bringing out the real vicious murderer in Damian. So now we pick up in Batman Robin issue number 5, and it really shows two different kinds of story. First and foremost, it shows a little bit more of a backstory on Bruce, his relation with Henry Ducart, and Nobody. And it's kind of a little bit of a reboot, kind of a little bit of a retcon of sorts. Henry Ducart looks a little bit different than he did in the Blind Justice comic. But we get an origin of him, his son, and Bruce's introduction to Henry Ducart. And while this is going on, Bruce is doing a little recording for Damian. And then on the other side of the hand, we have Damian, who's working with Nobody, and they are doing an infiltration into a U.S. embassy to take out some guy that is doing a human trafficking. And there's some pretty good action that goes down in there. And it all leads up to a cliffhanger where Damian's going to have to make a big decision. A decision that could very well change the course of Batman and Robin. So with that said, let's get into the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get it. Good. Well, first and foremost is I like how this kind of went back and it gave us a little bit of a history lesson of the post-Flashpoint Henry Ducart and his relationship with Bruce. It's alluded to this that Bruce had training before he left Gotham. He was trained in several forms of martial arts and, different sciences and different forms of investigation. But there were 5 big people that trained him in certain areas. Some areas may have been martial arts, some areas may have been detective work, some areas may have been something else. We don't necessarily know. But we knew that Henry Ducart was one of them. So we got kind of a history lesson in this. And for someone like me, who is an immensely huge Batman fan who enjoys the Batman mythos, getting a nice clean-up work of Henry Ducart's backstory is good. It doesn't really change anything too much in the backstory because really in Blind Justice, which is again right here, they didn't really allude to too much of how Bruce met up with Henry and what they did when they were together. It really just showed the tensions and the breakup between the two. So it kind of more or less adds to the backstory of Henry Ducart. In addition to that, the Damian stuff, the character angles that's going on with Damian, Bruce finding out what's going on with Damian, and the drawings Damian has up in his room, and how really messed up this kid is. It's really good, and his slow descent into darkness is fun to watch. Particularly when he goes off and he starts talking to Nobody. Nobody's really testing him and seeing, are you willing to do this? Are you willing to do this? And Damian removes his cape because he's not there to make a message anymore. He is the message, so on and so forth. So great Damian angles going on here. And it's a nice character development for Bruce, who really realizes that he's wrong. He's not perfect, and what he's been doing is the wrong way to deal with Damian. Bad. The only bad I don't like, and this is just a small minor gripe, is Henry Ducard looks dramatically different in this than he did in Batman Blind Justice. Batman Blind Justice, if I remember, he had kind of a mushroom top similar to Guy Gardner's, and then he had this big bushy mustache. In this, he kind of has this little goatee, and he has darker hair, not brown. It's not a big deal, but it's still something to get used to. Besides that, on a whole, this was a really good issue, and Batman Robin is turning out to be a really good series, one of the best of Batman books. I think it's because of the introduction of Nobody and how he's a formidable enemy, not only on a physical level, but also on a psychological level for the dynamic duo. The character arc going on with the relationship between Bruce and Damian, and in addition to that, the kind of the dip into the mythos of Batman, the training of Batman, and bring in a great character, Henry Ducard, who's actually not really used, is his son that's used, but really kind of giving us a bit more of the history that goes on between him and Bruce. And this also had some great action in it. There's a two-page spread which had so many different panels of just Damian infiltrating the embassy. Really great issue. Really enjoying the series. It started off kind of slow, but it's picking up really well. So I would say a 5 out of 5 stars. This was a great issue. With that said, I'm going to end this review here. This is Andrew saying peace out for now.